Okay, so we're all here for real-time visibility using the client statement cache to troubleshoot open-edge performance issues, right? Everybody's in the right room? Okay, nobody's getting up and rushing out. We're going to talk about three main things here. What's the user doing at any given moment in time? How do you set up the client statement cache? And what is the impact of using the client statement cache? So it's three distinct topics that we're going to go through here. Okay, so you're all sold on what a great feature it is. Obviously, the next thing you want to do is you want to know how to set it up, how to enable it, how to make it work for you, right? Everybody wants that. Anybody doesn't want to use the client statement cache? Okay, good. So to configure it, you have some options you got to think about. Do you want the top of the stack, or do you want the whole stack? So that's a question of the current line or all the lines that it took to get there, your whole call frame. Do you want to run it continuously, or do you just want to run it once? So if you only run it once, then you get what's happening right then, or what the next thing to happen is going to be, but then an hour from now you won't have any information. So usually you want to run it continuously. Should you enable it for a few selected clients or for all clients? Well, that really depends a lot on whether or not you have insight into where problems are going to come from. If you know that a certain group of users or a certain type of users are the ones that are causing your problems, then you can narrow your focus and you can just enable it for those specific users. But if you don't know where your problems are going to come from, then you may want to enable it for everybody as a kind of a global thing. Then there's a temporary file directory. So, like many things, scratch files have to be created under certain circumstances, and you need to have a place to put those scratch files. By default, the temporary file will go in your working directory, but you can decide that you would like to have it in a kind of a centralized place, much like you do with the capital T parameter for your client temporary files. Unfortunately, client statement cache does not follow the capital T parameter, so you have to specify it discreetly for that particular purpose. There is an inconvenient bug in that you can only change that temp file directory one time per Promon session. After that, it just tells you, yeah, I know that's where you told me to put it. Yes, but no, I won't let you change it. It's here. So, but you can restart Promon and then you'll be able to change it again. So, if you're going to enable CSC with Promon, here's kind of how you go about that. You go into familiar looking screen here, you go to Promon 118.1, Client Database Request Statement Cache, and you activate for selected users or all users. You get a list of users and you put in a user number, and then you select whether you want to do it a single time, for the full stack, or for one time. So over here I did just once, but usually I'm going to do single is top of stack, one time is the one and done kind of option. It's kind of confusing the way they name those. I've gone 0, 1, 2 myself. Or you can script it. So in some cases, we have some customers who like to have the client statement cache enabled for everybody all the time whenever the database is running. So they have a script where you run Promon and you take the input from you take it from a file, or you can take it from the script itself, and that basically just walks through the Promon scripts, enabling the client statement cache for everyone. You can do this for either Unix or Windows, and so whenever your database starts, you turn it on, and it's all ready to go. It's invaluable for those people. They feel that it's a really important feature for them to have. And then you can view, as we saw earlier, the results in Promon. So once again, Tom is still running line 1254 of dynamic viewer update, whatever that does. Or you can do it with CSCs, VSTs rather. So VSTs, they're typically read-only. You think of VSTs, the virtual system tables, as read-only tables, but actually there are a few updatable fields. There are a few fields in the VSTs which you can write to in order to enable features like this. So we can update the caching type with connect caching type equals 2, which says I want the full stack in this particular case. Or if we didn't find the connect record, then that user has logged out and they're no longer connected. So I even have a little bit of error handling in here, which is unusual for unusual for a talk at a park. We don't usually do much in the way of error handling. And then, whoops, we actually already covered this. So viewing the output with the VSTs is the same code as before. And then ProTop has a couple of screens where you can either enable the client statement cache for a specific user by putting their user number in, or you can do a process ID. So sometimes you're at the operating system level and you can see that a progress session, you have the PID from the process, but you don't know what the user number is. So it's easier to just put the process number in here rather than try to figure out what the user number is. You'd have to go into the log file and you'd have to grep for the process ID, and then you'd have to find the user number from that. Or you can just go through this. And there's a little warning here, some helpful information about how you might want to make your choices. Or you can just enable it globally within Promon. Just push a button and does it for you. ProTop. And then you get output that looks pretty much the same as it did before. There's a reason for that. I copied the slide. And once again, we got some alerts. So it's cool. So you can set it up really easily. You can either use Promon interactively or you can script it. You can roll your own with virtual system tables. You can take that little code I showed you there and you can write your own little thing, or you can use ProTop and kind of have all that hard work done for you. Usually, I recommend that you do top of stack because that's the quickest, simplest, and zeroes right in on what you want to know. It's not all that frequent that you really need to know the steps that you took to get to that line. Once you know what the line is, you probably know what's going on and you can fix it pretty easily. If you have a lot of remote clients, so you have a client-server application, Windows client, Unix backend, then you might want to be a little bit careful about enabling it for everyone all the time, and we'll get into that in the performance side of things. But typically, well, not typically, but if you have one of those applications, which is largely a shared memory application, you have a lot of app servers, you've got things that are connecting to the database that way, then you can pretty safely just do an enable all, and you won't have too many issues.